very few stipulations, that on consideration of the diary being supplied to the News of the World, the News of the World would pay 20,000 euros to the journalist, and its purpose would be for exclusive publication. In the News of the World.
Yes.
But the payment of 20,000 euros wasn't dependent on it being exclusively published in the News of the World.
Yes, it was. Paragraph 6.
Yes, it was. They all the contracts were on that basis because we would run out of money rather quickly.
You're right. I'm wrong. Okay. So the next few days, I think the documents show, were devoted to establishing that the diaries were what they purported to be. Yes. Have I got that right?
Yes.
And then did there come a point, you having established that you wanted to ascertain whether or not there was consent from Dr. Kate McCann for publication. Have I correctly understood the position?
Yes.
But the obvious question, Mr. Myler, is this. Why didn't you not telephone either of the McCanns and find out whether they consented?
Because Ian Edmondson had assured me on more than one occasion that Clarence was aware of what we were intending to do and had said good. I think it was very clear from Mr. Edmondson's point of view how he spelt out what he was doing, and indeed, I stressed very clearly by using the phrase that I did not want Kate to come out of church on Sunday morning and find that the diaries were there without her knowledge.
But you were, of course, aware that if Dr. Kate McCann had not given her consent to the publication of this personal diary, she would be outraged by the publication. You were aware of that, weren't you?
I wouldn't have published if I thought that she hadn't been made aware of it.
And Mr. Edmondson was telling you that he had obtained consent on what day?
Well, it was absolutely clear from the Friday to the Saturday that assurance had been given to him and given again to me.
Given it was going to be a front page story after all, wasn't it?
Which Friday to which Saturday are we talking about? What date?
12th and 13th, isn't it?
Yeah, in other words, the sort of from the Friday conference to deciding, what you're doing with the front of the paper.
I see.
I made it clear, I think, on the Friday by using that phrase, and I repeated it to him again on the Saturday. And at no stage did he indicate to me that Mr. Mitchell had told him it wouldn't be appropriate to do what he'd been told we were doing.
Given the importance of all of this, why not just pick up the phone yourself and find out?
Mr. Mitchell was a very experienced media spokesperson, absolutely. I had no reason to believe that what Mr. Edmondson was telling me wasn't correct.
Did Mr. Edmondson tell you clearly that he had told Mr. Mitchell that a copy of the diary had been obtained via the Portuguese police, had been translated by you, and that sections of that translation were going to be published in the News of the World, as opposed to the News of the World simply using publications which had already been made in Portugal to base a story?
No. My understanding was that it was very clear that Mr. Edmondson had explained what we had, because I think the extracts that had appeared in Portugal were very minor, limited. I don't know how much they used, but there was a I think there's a transcript in here of a conversation where he explains that he was trying to get me to go big with it, And I think in the course of that conversation, I think Mr. Mitchell had said that he'd vaguely remembered when they had been used in part in the Portuguese press, and that they were obviously very selective.
Yes, but did Mr. Edmondson make it clear to you that he had made it clear to Mr. Mitchell that he had the whole diary and was going to cause extracts from it to be published in the News of the World?
That's what he led me to believe, yes.
Because reading the transcript, and this is something which you didn't, of course, see at the time, the transcript of a conversation...
Sorry, which tab are we?
This is tab 9.
Yes, you did see it just a few days later on the Tuesday.
It's a 4-page transcript of a conversation between Ian Edmondson and Clarence Mitchell on Friday, September the 12th, 2008. It's quite a complicated document, and certainly bears at least one interpretation, probably several. You saw it 2 days later, or 2 days after publication, I had to say, on the Tuesday, didn't you?
This is the transcript of conversation between Ian Edmondson and Mr. Mitchell?
Indeed.
Yes.
Because we know Mr. Edmondson sent it to you. You're the first recipient on the email, aren't you?
Yes.
Having seen that transcript, and I'm not going to go through it now, why did you apologise to the McCanns at all? Unless it was capable of bearing at least a number of interpretations.
Well, because I felt very bad that she didn't know. And as I've said before, without her permission, I wouldn't have published them. I mean, why would I do something as personal as that, however much behind a shield of nailing the lies of the Portuguese media and the press? I don't think that would have been sufficient for the grief it caused her, and I had absolutely nothing to gain and everything to lose, given the relationship that we had established.
But if that was your thought process on the 16th of September, why wasn't it the thought process you had the previous week, Mr. Myler?
Well, because I was given an absolute categoric assurance that Clarence knew what we were doing.
Well, you've read this transcript, I'm sure. It's clearly not a document that spells it out in words of one syllable, is it?
Mr. Edmondson, given the number of times I asked him for the assurance to make sure that there was absolute clarity and understanding, had no view that there was anything ambiguous in what we were going to do.
It may be, Mr. Myler, that it's unfair to ask you much more about this, but would you agree with this? This document is most clearly ambiguous. This is the transcript that you were sent by Mr. Edmondson as establishing, presumably, the consent about which you were then concerned. And it's not terribly clear. Would you agree with that?
I need to... All right. I only got this bundle yesterday. I'm sorry.
That's entirely fair enough.
I'm sorry.
What was the total sum that the News of the World paid for this diary?
I don't know. We'd have to check, because often when sums are going into a managing editor's sheet, particularly when they have brackets which says they're still being negotiated, the tendency was for that sum to be negotiated down, and therefore it was a running memoir, if you like. The chances are that that figure possibly could have come down. So the managing editor's office will have a record of that.
Okay, but you made a donation to the Madeleine Fund.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Was it a substantial donation?
I believe it was.
Okay.
And an apology the following week, I think it was the following week, negotiated with, I think, Mr. Thompson and Carter Ruck, and in it was an acceptance and an acknowledgement that there had been a misplaced understanding that we had Kate's permission, and we made that very clear, that the last thing we wanted to do was to cause her any more distress.
May I move off that to another topic? This other topic is such that I won't be able to conclude it today. I don't know how you...
I think... do I understand that, save for Mr. Myler, we're not going to find ourselves tomorrow running over a